So, rewind the internet 24 hours if you are watching this the day it goes live, which is Monday the 29th of December, 2026, terrifyingly close. But Alex McCarthy, who is a friend of the show in many ways, I like Alex, he's a very good guy, and SI are reporting that Chris Jericho is done with AEW, he shall be heading back to WWE, and while we all expected if that did go down, it would happen in the Royal Rumble, which is like 3 weeks away, apparently it could be happening as soon as the 5th of January Raw, which WWE is trying to make into a big thing. They want the first Raw of the year. Do you remember they tried to do that pay-per-view ages ago called Day One? And then often it wouldn't be on Day One. Well, I think they've decided that when we get to the first Raw in January, Netflix, that's going to be like a pay-per-view that you do get on free television or whatever the flub you want to call it. It's not free TV at all. That was a dumb thing to say, but Chris Jericho could pop up there not only to re-signal that he has come back to WWE, but to make you go, come 2026, well, who the hell are we going to see now? There's a bigger question to all of this. What the flub is he going to do? We're about to get into that. Before we do, please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And go watch all my content for the last week, I beg of you. Because every single year Christmas comes, and I go, well, people can't like me anymore because my views have tanked. And maybe you don't like me anymore, but do it anyway. 'Tis the season. But yes, I think it's probably a good move for Chris Jericho. I was never massively offended by what he was doing in AEW towards the end of his run there, but I think the key word there is the end. It just kind of felt like unless we were going to have a massive reset or do something different, it wasn't abundantly clear what else Chris Jericho could do there. Now, I want to touch on a couple of things. One, you cannot take away from the impact Chris Jericho had in AEW. I remember when they had the press conference in 2019, it must have been. It was a huge deal when he walked out. You can do some recency bias should you so wish, but having a major name like Chris Jericho, who had been on WWE TV for nigh on 20 years about that point, made a lot of people go, well, no, I'm massively interested because I want to see what they're going to do. It felt like a coup, right? And I would argue that AEW needed a guy like that. And then making Chris Jericho the first ever AEW World Champion was super smart because once again, it makes noise, it gets out there on social media, and maybe you're a lapsed wrestling fan, you're going to know Chris Jericho's name. As I believe he has talked about in interviews too, then you tune in for Jericho, but you fall in love with Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, whoever the flub was doing it at the time. So it was a very, very smart move, and it's exactly what AEW should have done. And when it comes to the AEW Hall of Fame or the history of AEW, you can't write that book without Chris Jericho. I just won't hear anything otherwise. Just because you don't like the guy, which is perfectly valid. Again, you're allowed your opinion on him as a performer, but it was massively important what he did do there. And also, I don't get these people that are saying, oh, Chris Jericho leaving AEW is proof that AEW is in the gutter. Why does everything have to be tribalism? That's right, we're going to have a Miller moan here. It's just so stupid. If those people had been watching the Attitude Era or the Monday Night Wars in the late 90s, they would have been having meltdowns every single week. Flipping, when Nitro started, Lex Luger turned up on WCW, and it was like, wait a minute, you're a WWF guy. How are you doing this? It's a whole conversation about lapsed contracts and people in power not realizing. But it's just, if you are a wrestler, right, you want to have multiple big companies on television, because what it does is not only does it give you extra leverage when it comes to money, but it means you can freshen up your gimmick, you can freshen up your character when the time is right by going somewhere new. Who the flub knows why it happens, but it most definitely does, and it's good for us fans. Why you would become tribalistic about this, I don't know. Jericho, unless you really are against him, I understand that. I hate to have to say that every time. Those comments come, I don't like Chris Jericho. Okay, I get it. Nobody cares. That's not true. We care a lot. But if Chris Jericho turning up on Raw is going to get a massive pop, it's going to be the antithesis to what was happening in AEW towards the end there, where quite clearly fans have gone off him. And obviously from that point on, WWE is going to have to book him, right? But if he does some sort of, I don't know, gimmick reunion tour, whatever the flub you want to call it, and the fans are into that, you are going to totally forget what he was doing in AEW towards the end of this year, and it's like hitting reset, and that's why it's so damn important that you have a big company like WWE, and you have a big company like AEW, because it helps the wrestlers, and there'll be plenty of people you do like right now, you don't know where they're going to be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You can argue that's exactly what Cody Rhodes did, and I would argue that Cody actually timed it perfectly. He was on the precipice and he realized, I gotta go, man. Where sure, Chris Jericho may have eked it out a bit, but it also doesn't matter. As long as you do it eventually, even if Chris Jericho had gone back to AEW, made a bunch of money, it's not like he hasn't had a Hall of Fame career now, is it? So let's say he's going to pop up on Raw. Now, Raw is very interesting because when I sat down to actually think what would I like Chris Jericho to do, there were two things, one of which we can't do anywhere, and also one I don't think Chris Jericho would sign on for in terms of his debut. I would have loved him seeing feud with Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental title. It sounds like Dominic Mysterio is injured. We don't know the extent. We don't know if it's just something he can heal up in a couple of weeks. But also, as much as I love Dom, I think Chris Jericho, if he was going to go back to WWE, once again, because he would have had plenty of leverage, can absolutely say, no, I want to come in at a certain level. And, you know, one thing that Chris Jericho most definitely has is an ego. So I'd imagine he would be taking on a typically top star. And then eventually, obviously, he'll balance down to take on some of the younger guys because that's what veterans do. After that, I was like, well, I think Cody Rhodes probably needs somebody after Drew McIntyre. I'm still hoping it's Randy Orton, but my faith in that has completely waned because you can go back to a video in December 2024. And I was like, well, I can't wait for the Randy Orton-Cody Rhodes feud. And WWE just doesn't seem interested in it, or we're going to get through that 3 stages of hell match in Berlin and Randy Orton will be waiting for Cody Rhodes. So I can't lose. But I just thought, given that I feel like CM Punk is going to be tied up for a long time, and that's the major match that I do want, is CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, you can kind of do a similar program with a Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho, right? They both come from AEW. Not that I want that to be the entire program, but I do think when you can kind of merge the lines between reality and fiction, that always makes it interesting. And also, I guess the last time we saw Cody and Chris Jericho was for the AEW World title when MJF screwed over Cody and, of course, meant he was never allowed to challenge for the World Championship again. I just think there could be lots you could do there. At the same time, you're being like, Simon, we've already seen that. I totally get it. I was just trying to think, Cody Rhodes is a typically top champion, right? I would love Drew McIntyre to win the championship. I don't think it's going to happen. Don't mind Cody holding on to either because I think he's a great babyface. But it also means Chris Jericho's coming in as a heel. It just doesn't work. I just like the dynamic of somebody coming in. Maybe it's just because I feel like SmackDown needs a shot in the arm, right? Although actually I think now you could probably treat SmackDown as the, what do you call it, land of new opportunity place, which is the worst thing I've ever said. But get Trick Williams on there, push Carmella Hayes for sure, get Obafemi on there, and get Siobhan Evans on there, right? I think that would absolutely work. And you could even put Jordynne Grace on there too, like really get some new talent so SmackDown becomes exciting. If he is going to debut on the Netflix Raw, I think it's weird if all of a sudden he becomes a SmackDown guy. I mean, not that WWE really cares about the brand split anymore. That seems dead, which I'm perfectly fine with, by the way. I've never been a huge fan of it. So you kind of look through the Raw roster and you think to yourself, well, what the flub could he do? And I don't know how this works. Given, well, there's 2 ways you can do this, right? And it's pure fantasy booking by me. You're totally allowed to get mad. Do it in the comments. Like I said, when you are down there, do subscribe. If he's coming back in as a huge babyface, you do have this ongoing feud with CM Punk and Bron Breakker, which means you also have a feud with CM Punk and The Vision, right? That comes part and parcel of everything. Now, The Vision technically is now up to 4 people here. Bron Breakker, you have Bronson Reed, you have Logan Paul, and of course, you have Austin Theory. I mean, I am still kind of convinced that Austin Theory is going to turn out to be a Seth Rollins teammate, and he's sort of, you know, keeping his eyes on the prize until Seth can return. But that's months down the line, right? So for now, you have to pretend, for lack of a better term, he is in The Vision. So we know how much Raw loves to do multi-person tags. Who is going to be on the other side of that fence? Now, when LA Knight comes back, obviously he has to be feuding with The Vision. They killed him, took him off TV. CM Punk, we've already gone over that one. He has to be doing it too. Rey Mysterio now kind of feels like he's involved in this because they murk him every single week. So who is the 4th guy, right? Who is number 4? It would have been Jey Uso, but Jey Uso right now obviously doing stuff with the tag team scene. Even if he does turn heel, which I don't believe it as much as I want did, unless Jey Uso's going to join him as well. But that puts him in his own pocket anyway. He's not going to turn heel and then come and feud with The Vision. That makes no sense. So I start to think, well, maybe number 4 could be Chris Jericho. And it kind of brings him back in a position that I think WWE would want him in. Like, he hasn't worked since April. Is that when he got taken off TV? So maybe you do want to ease him back in. You also have a superstar side of babyfaces. Again, Rey, CM Punk, Chris Jericho, and LA Knight will benefit from that too. And let's not pretend he's not been massively over in WWE for the last few years. But you're also working with 4 people who quite clearly WWE see as the future. So if you can kind of take all this experience you have on one side and pass it across to the next. I'm not saying that Chris Jericho needs to be hidden. That's what it sounds like I'm saying. I am pretty sure he can still have a very decent singles match, especially given his age. He just has no wear and tear on his body. And even when people weren't really into his gimmick, he was still having some pretty good matches. Yeah, sure, some went a little bit awry, but such is life. I'm not going to worry about it. But I also think it's just a way to reacclimatize him back into WWE. And also, because WWE is so much about moments, that return will be awesome. every time Chris Jericho used to return, it was absolutely brilliant. So you'll know they'll come up with something good, and they'll probably start teasing it soon. If this is all true, again, it could be speculation. We do not know. I just think seeing those four guys lined up is going to allow WWE to lean into their sort of rewriting of history and, oh my gosh, it's the greatest team ever. They won't mention where Chris Jericho's been for the last few years. I mean, maybe they'll hint at it. And I know now you're going, but CM Punk and Chris Jericho don't really like each other. Well, we don't know that for sure. And even if that is the case, WWE will sit them down and say, look, you've got to get on with him and he's got to get on with you. Like before Punk came back, everybody said, I will never do anything with Kevin Owens. We had a segment with them. Oh, I'll never work with AJ Styles. And AJ Styles will come out and said, I'll do something with him. Sami Zayn, they got and did all their thing, had promos all of the time. Seth Rollins, they would just say, it's a professional business. You have to do business. You could hate each other in your personal life, but I don't give a damn. And that's just what will happen. It's always happened in WWE. And even though the regime has changed, nothing is going to have shifted there. And if anybody does play up, they go goodbye and show you the door, which is why everybody's going to be on their best behavior because they want to be in the big old company making millions and millions of dollars. And I do like that, and I kind of think that even if you did get to the singles programs, right, let's say it is going to be Bronson Reed versus LA Knight, because again, he crushed him on a car. Bron Breakker and CM Punk, no matter what happens in that title match, I think you can maybe sort of prolong it a little bit, but that should be the two people that are looking at each other. It kind of feels to me like Rey Mysterio and Logan Paul have their beef. Like Rey Mysterio has to get a win over Logan Paul at some point. Good grief, he's beaten him like 2 times, maybe even 3 times now. So that's when I really got to my last point was, well, that would put Chris Jericho with Austin Theory, and I quite like that because Austin Theory is quite a curious case. Because once again, I think Chris Jericho would mainly be coming in to help younger talent, right? He will have some big matches. You'll probably get to the CM Punk match eventually. Maybe do the Cody thing. Maybe do something with Randy Orton. It's like the John Cena run, right? When you revisit these matches from our past, you get a nostalgic pop, and that is what WWE loves the most. They love nostalgia. Anyone they can bring back, they absolutely will. If that is the way you do reintroduce him into things, I just think Chris Jericho could go out of his way to try and finally make this Austin Theory thing click. We talked about it on our Raw review that we did a few days ago. I still think Austin Theory should be a babyface. That's not what WWE is doing. They see worth him as a heel. I just think when you see him, or when he was down in NXT, but when you see him running around his real life, he just seems like a lovable moron. I mean, as a positive, I see myself as a moron too. I think it could be a good thing to be a goof when you're kind of skipping through life. But, you know, WWE wants to paint him as something different. And if anybody can kind of hold him by his hand and say, let's try this, let's try that, it is Chris Jericho, who has been a brilliant babyface and he's been a brilliant heel. And I'm sure he knows a bunch of tips and tricks and who knows what else that he'll be able to pass across to him. That's what we did with John Cena and Austin Theory. That's why Austin Theory was teamed up with Vince McMahon. He had another big feud as well that I can't remember now. It really was only until he got paired with Grayson Waller, which was a fun tag team, but eventually they kind of floated off into the abyss. So that's what I think they will do. And of course, there'll be a bunch of multi-man tags, and by March, we'll hate all of this because WWE will repeat the same main event for 4,622 times. I don't necessarily think you build to an Austin Theory versus Chris Jericho match at WrestleMania, but I mean, you could do for sure. I can't. Does he win his first WrestleMania match back? I mean, that's a much of a muchness. We need to see how it all portrays on television. But if he does come back in early January and you've got 4 months, I'm pretty sure you can get it done. Maybe the Royal Rumble, maybe the Elimination Chamber. And Chris Jericho will be in that Royal Rumble. It's kind of interesting because there was a rumor that we're going to get less surprises in the Royal Rumble this year because they have to fly to Saudi Arabia. I don't really understand why you can't hide people, but we wait and see. But actually now, after it did come out, I was like, you know what? The 5th of November Raw, the 6th of November Raw, whatever it is, I actually think is better. Just because if you do genuinely make that show feel like, oh my gosh, a major pay-per-view. And also you kickstart the year with a bang. And I always think that's massively important. I mean, you know, CM Punk could lose his title to Bron Breakker, which would do that. But I always go back to when AEW debuted Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole on that same show, which people still talk about. Sometimes just do a bunch of crazy things. It means interest in the product is high. People will keep coming back and you set your stall for 2026. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. Now, of course, Chris Jericho could come back as a bad guy. I mean, he's going to get a babyface pop. But once again, you can look at the Adam Cole thing in AEW. He walked out, pretended to be a babyface for about 82 seconds when he did join the Super Elite. And that would make it kind of interesting because then, I mean, to me, if he was going to come back as a bad guy, obviously LA Knight's going to have to sort everything out with Bronson Reed. But I don't know. There's something about Chris Jericho versus LA Knight that I do like a lot. I mean, you don't have to paint them as one of them as the bad guy and one of them as the good guy. Sometimes just having shades of grey would be super interesting. But LA Knight, does he feel like he's in the same spot as Chris Jericho? A little bit. And I don't know why. Slap your head for no apparent reason. I mean, the promos would be good. And the one thing that you don't lose, even when you do get into your mid-50s, which Chris Jericho is, of course you're going to lose a step in the ring. Nobody can get away with that. I mean, it's why John Cena retired, for goodness sake. But his promo skills, I just think he needs to be put against the right person. And I think the things I would like within the first 6 months, and again, WWE's proven they can do this, even if a feud is on the horizon. We've seen CM Punk and Cody Rhodes do so many promos, they've never had a match. I'd love to see Chris Jericho promo off, which is a stupid term I've just come up with, against LA Knight. I'd absolutely love to see him do it against CM Punk if there is a bit of animosity there, because that would be awesome. As much as he irks me, the Logan Paul thing would be super interesting. I think Chris Jericho is one of these guys who'd be like, you better keep up with me, kid, otherwise you're going to be swimming with the sharks. And there's just so many other people on SmackDown too. Like, I think if Drew McIntyre is going to lose to Cody Rhodes and you are going to shuffle the deck a bit, there's something in a Chris Jericho-Drew McIntyre feud too. The only issue there is that I don't know what kind of assurances Chris Jericho would have wanted. I can't imagine you get any. But if Drew McIntyre fails to win that WWE Championship a third time, whatever feud he goes into next, that's why Chris Jericho is good, because Chris Jericho is going to feel totally fresh until SummerSlam if we get this right. And if Drew McIntyre could be the first guy to beat him, I do think that gives him a little bit of an elevation, as long as we pitch Chris Jericho as, oh my gosh, he's living legend. Chris Jericho, can't believe he's back. At the same time, are you going to beat Chris Jericho that soon? Lots of you will be saying, well, if we do that, why even bring him back to begin with? It all depends on what your stance of Chris Jericho is. However, I do think it freshens up WWE's main event scene. It absolutely helps some of the rookies, we'll call them, and get them to go up to another level. I think eventually you could put Chris Jericho in a tag team. There's another rumor out there that maybe WWE's pitched him a retirement tour. So you're talking about AJ Styles, you're talking about Brock Lesnar is the other rumor. So Chris Jericho could be another one. I would imagine we wouldn't do that until 2027 at the earliest. What it does do is really help somebody else, which actually I thought about would also be a good feud. Because Gunther has come out now and basically said, I love retiring people, which is a very strange thing to say. But he's taken out John Cena. He's taken out Goldberg. I'm convinced he's going to take out AJ Styles, given what WWE is doing on TV. If Brock Lesnar does want to go away, why now would you choose anybody else? And that would leave Chris Jericho. And once more, if Chris Jericho is coming back as a babyface, absolutely good feud with Gunther. And actually, that's something that you could bring Chris Jericho in to do. Now, once again, this is me talking from my vantage point with no egos and no discussions beforehand. But if Chris Jericho does return, and he goes after Gunther, and Gunther's next call of business after retiring John Cena is whooping Chris Jericho's ass, I think that would be fantastic. I also think it'd be a really interesting story. You can sell the fact that Chris Jericho's been inactive for the last year, WWE will say 42 years, and that he has just come back to, I don't know, a more competitive environment, whatever words they'll flip and use. They love doing stuff like that. If Gunther thumps him, and he can then come out and going, ha ha ha, I now beat Chris Jericho too, then Chris Jericho can go get wins and go do whatever the flub. And then come 2027, that is right, terrifying, he then challenges Gunther, and Gunther's the guy that retires him. Then Gunther gets double off that. And I don't know, I think it all depends on what happens when they sit down and talk about it. I would love that. If you get deep, dirty, and again, Gunther's a Raw guy, but deep, dirty into a feud between Chris Jericho and Gunther. Let him do the big promo whilst let Chris Jericho stand tall there. But actually, when push does come to shove, Gunther just absolutely runs through him. You can still have a competitive match, but Gunther wins, maybe with a tap out, maybe with a power bomb, maybe with a go to sleep, whatever, not a GTS. You know what I'm talking about. I just think Gunther needs something, right? Whoever Gunther beats next has to be like a massive name. We'll just compare it to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30, Beats The Undertaker's streak, oh my gosh. But what really puts a full stop on it is when he goes to SummerSlam and he decimates John Cena. Now everyone is like, oh my gosh, you're the final boss. And you can do that with Gunther now, but it has to be something big. At the moment, all the tippity top names are taken up with other things. Drew's been taken up, Cody's taken up, CM Punk is taken up, Seth Rollins isn't on TV. Who else is a major star right now? I would have forgotten someone. I kind of feel like we've done Randy Orton and Gunther enough, but you could do that as well. It doesn't feel like it's on the cards, especially because Randy Orton isn't allowed to come to television. So Chris Jericho could be that guy. At the same time, if I put my head in, I think his real name is Chris Irvin Shoes, and Paul Levesque. Can't believe Paul Levesque going, hey man, we'd love you to come back to WWE, and the first thing you're going to do is get destroyed by Gunther. I can imagine Chris Jericho going, I can just re-sign with AEW now for millions of dollars. So I imagine he's probably going to win a lot when he first comes back in, but maybe not. Maybe he sees the worth in returning as a babyface, getting humbled, for lack of a better term, like he's taking on the Sheik, and then rebuilding himself up, which is something that New Japan would do. It's something that they do all the time. But I like it when somebody comes back from a big injury, and they usually lose their first match, because everyone's like, well, of course, you've been out the ring for so long. And I think that's how WWE will portray it with Chris Jericho. And if you do make it clear he's going on a 1.5, 2 year retirement tour, I think he could take some losses. Then, of course, you have the win towards the end before somebody like Gunther actually goes, right, challenge me again, and he's able to retire Chris Jericho. So, given how WWE ended 2025, I do think it will be a plus for the freshness of the product. And listen, those WWE fans, even the new ones, they love nostalgia, they buy into all the lore and the revisionist history, which they're allowed to do. Wrestling's there for fun. Whatever gets your kicks off is what you should do. Chris Jericho will get a massive pop when he does return. If it isn't the Royal Rumble, it'll be a massive pop. And whoever his first feud is, be it has a match at the Rumble or the Elimination Chamber, or we wait to WrestleMania, which feels way too far away. But I suppose you could be patient. You're going to get that thing when he stares down whoever the flubber is, and people are going to be going crazy. And there's so many ways you can do this. Again, Gunther, the monster heel that takes him out. Austin Theory, where behind the scenes you kind of have a mentor-mentee relationship. Maybe you could come up when he does take on a Cody Rhodes or CM Punk. I don't think they're going to do that just yet. Once again, I just think the main event guys have programs that WWE will not be... They'll be hesitant to stop, and therefore they won't do it, and nor should they. But I do think it opens up a lot of options. Ultimately, he just has to be able to service the product, for lack of a better term. He has to be able to tell you when you are watching, Raw is now a better show for it. And it's not like he doesn't know how to promo, right? And WWE Raw especially relies totally on that. So I am quite excited to see it, especially if you do have Ray, Logan, LA Knight's going to be away for a while, I think. Let's say you have a segment with CM Punk, Rey Mysterio, and Chris Jericho doing their thing. Chris Jericho and CM Punk don't have to like each other within the terms of the story. I mean, WWE's favorite thing as well is, well, you know, my enemy of my enemy is my friend, and therefore I team with you, CM Punk, but it's only because I hate that vision. And then you go from there. But you can still have CM Punk and Chris Jericho go, well, one day I'm going to come for you. And if Punk still is the champion by that point, or it wouldn't happen on that show, but whatever, I'm going to take your title, etc., etc. Sometimes you just need an injection in the side of an arm, even if things are going well. It's not like WWE business is dropping, but that's why it's massively important that wrestlers do jump ship when the time is right, because it helps them, it helps the promotion they're going to. And I always think the fans get off about this. And yes, you're going to see those accounts that for years have been like, oh, Chris Jericho's rubbish in AEW. Now go, but he's brilliant in WWE. Just ignore them. Ignore the Tony Khan fumbled. Ignore all of it, man. It's just grifting. It doesn't mean anything. And if the first thing you thought when you saw this speculation was, oh my God, it's Chris Jericho, AEW's turned his back on. What are you talking about? He was there for 6 years. How is that turning his back on AEW? His contract came due. He looked at the situation in AEW, probably thought, man, these guys don't like me. In the same way other people have felt, I'm going to go to the other brand. A brand that, again, I've been synonymous with for many, many years. Was the first ever unified champion. No, that's an AEW belt. What they call Universal Champion? Whatever the flub WWE called it. Undisputed, there it is. Thank you, Brain, where he beat Stone Cold and The Rock in the same evening. I really even think, and of course I would say this, Mr. Goofy Wrestling for Life, turned up as Superman at Progress Wrestling yesterday. Some people get so mad at me. I don't care. I'm having the time of my life. Going through he's Y2J. Then he does the list. Then if he goes heel, he can do the tie, and I'm talking in big words, whatever the flub, man. You can do a best of Chris Jericho. And as long as he approaches it in the right way and he commits, which he does most of the time, I think it will work. I mean, the big question is, what theme music does he come out for? A lot of people want Fozzy Judas. In a dream mode, I would go for that because you're going to get a bigger pop. That's why the Cody Rhodes return was so special. So, oh my God, it's just Cody Rhodes from AEW. But Break the Walls Down is also pretty iconic, and I would actually go nuts for that. And of course, it's going to make your brain tap into the 1999 debut, which is still one of the best debuts of all time. So I think it's a net positive for WWE. I don't think it's a loss for AEW. I don't mean that disparagingly. I just think Chris Jericho gave his all to the company, and AEW sort of used him as much as they possibly could do. What does he do if he goes back? There's no other feuds. He completed AEW for what he needed to do, and AEW, I think, would have been shoehorning him in anyway. So it's just best for everybody. And I can't think of anyone right now, but sooner rather than later, there'll be somebody in WWE who will be coming to their contract, and they should go to AEW too, because it's only going to help them. I would say Adam Copeland was in this role. I remember he had that Sheamus match, his last match in WWE. So I don't know what we do with Adam Copeland after this, but, you know, moving over to AEW just opened the door for so many other matches. And it probably, I think he said this in interviews too, it reinvigorated him because it feels fresh, it feels different. Bryan Danielson summed it up the best when he first went to AEW, and his big question was, am I able to hang with these guys in the way that I once did? And I also think, given the style of AEW, and Chris Jericho is no spring chicken, not trying to be horrible at all, I think it's just the truth, he can probably work what is known as an easier style, which I think is a terrible thing to say, because all wrestling is incredibly hard. You could argue I work a WWE easier style, and good grief, I hurt all of the time, but maybe he can get away with more. Maybe that was a stupid point and I shouldn't have said it. You can debate it in the comments. But I like Chris Jericho going back to WWE. I think it is more interesting than him staying in AEW for all the reasons we have outlined. And as you have seen, I think there's a bunch of options too. And because it is Chris Jericho and because he can ride the wave for a good few weeks, I think ultimately it's going to work. People are going to be excited, and that's all you need. But listen, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sure I've said a bunch of dumb things there. So drop me a comment below. I know a lot of you are like, I just don't want to see Chris Jericho ever again, which is valid, but I'd much rather to hear how you would use him in WWE, right? Even if you were a booker and for some reason there's a boss above you, but you get the creative power, how do you use Chris Jericho even though you can't stand him? And now you'd be like, well, he should lose to Tozawa all the time. I ain't going to argue with you. I love Tozawa, and he absolutely should get more. When you are hanging out down there, please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen for my AEW at World's End review, where we talk about the wonderful nature of MJF and how great he is for professional wrestling. Otherwise, please go to patreon.com/Simon316 to support me there and get my watch-alongs too. Grillamine.com/Simon, link in the description. Use the code Simon to get money off, a lot of percentage off, and it ships worldwide. These are the fitness supplements I use, and they're just health supplements too. They're just great. There's a new, I can't say what that thing is, it's a new product, but I've been trying it over Christmas because I would never support anything I don't try, and I was like, man, you just keep releasing really good stuff. Otherwise, Simon316 for social media. Come get a Happy New Year cameo. Why the flub not? Please do support me on TikTok as well, as we put a bunch of wrestling clips, most of which are dumb and funny, up there as well. And you can get a t-shirt at prowrestlingtees.com/Simon Miller. We're all towards the end of the year. I'll probably say this on a few videos, but thank you so much for all of the support. It means the world to me. You probably don't know this. Come January 2026, I have been a wrestling content creator for 10 years. Arguably, I should be bigger than I am. But we do our best, and a lot of you have been there since day one, so thank you very much. I'll see you soon.